A while back, I had an opportunity to go to Spain to visit some wineries and learn some stuff, and suddenly found myself at a punk rock show on the water in San Sebastian. And for me, I think that's when everything all clicked. The trip was a lot of fun and educational, and I learned a ton. I had some great food and some really good times, but I came away with something intangible too. And it took me a while to figure out exactly what that intangible element was. Being in retail, I usually think about the price of the bottle, or what somebody's pairing it with, or what they're doing with that wine later on. I think I was missing a key factor, and that's the culture behind these wines. Let's take a look at these 3 regions I visited, Alicante, Rioja, and Basque, and see how the people and the culture find their way into your glass. Now, before I get into it, I'd love to ask you guys to hit the like button, subscribe, maybe diddle the bell a little bit, because we're trying to bring more wines at great prices to more people all around the country, and that really helps us out. Let's start in Alicante. When we got off the plane, we were greeted by the Canizares family. Rafael, the father and head winemaker, his son, Adrian, who is set to take up more of the hospitality stuff as time goes on, and his daughter, the next generation winemaker, Sofia. They immediately whisked us away and brought us to a great restaurant where we had some really good food and had some really good wines. After that, we went to the hotel to freshen up a little bit, and then Adrian came and picked us up from our hotel and brought us out into the desert of Alicante. I found myself in wide open spaces with the mountains in the backdrop and vines as far as you could see all around. They brought us up a hill into a small clearing filled with old vine monastrell used for their wine Triga. All throughout the vineyard there was wild rosemary and thyme growing, and he gave us a tour of some old ruin looking buildings that they were converting into a winery, and it was just really a beautiful thing to be a part of. We did some more vineyard touring, and then we went back to the hotel. We went for a swim in the Mediterranean, which was great. And then we went out to dinner. Rafael and his family picked us up, brought us out to a small restaurant surrounded by vines. The first thing that I saw when I walked into this place was a kitchen. And that's because it was walled with glass so that you could see inside. You see, one of the major regional dishes in Alicante is a rabbit and snail paella. They cook this paella right over vine cuttings that they dry out. The rabbits that they're using in this recipe are rabbits that come from the land surrounding the restaurant and in the vineyards. And the snails that they're using come right out of the Mediterranean a few miles away. Everything that we ate at this dinner was unbelievable, but the real surprise and the star of the show for me was the way that Triga Monastrell paired with this rice dish. Now, when I think of rice dishes, I don't usually think of really big, heavy red wines to go along with them, but this was truthfully pretty perfect. If you've never tasted Triga, it's a bold, dark, heavy, chewy bottle of red wine. The aromatics are generous, and you get a lot of that rosemary and thyme, just like you do in the vineyard when you're walking around. The next day, we toured their winery, went back to the hotel to rest for a little bit, and then we went out for dinner with them again. This time, they brought us into a restaurant in the city itself. Something that I noticed that I'm not sure everyone else did is the second that Rafael Canizares walked into this restaurant, it was like the parting of the Red Sea. Everybody looked and knew who he was immediately and what he was there for. It wasn't the kind of power that you get by taking it or paying for it. It was something that his family has earned over generations of making wine in the region. When I look back and I think about that dinner and the dinner the day before, and that family's generosity and their deep-rooted power and history in the region, I think that it really is echoed in that bottle of Triga Monastrell. The bottle is powerful and generous and bold, just like the Canizares family and the history of Alicante. The next place that we went was Rioja. We stayed in the city of Logroño, which was lively and classic and youthful at the same time. When we first went out into the vineyards, we met Rafa and Santi Vivanco. These are 2 brothers that are the heads of the Carlos Serres winery. Rafa is a very clean-cut, serious businessman type of guy, and his brother Santi is the polar opposite, an eccentric, artsy museum curator. One of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life was getting a private tour of the Vivanco Wine Museum. Santi brought our group through the entire museum. He really took his time and answered any questions that we had, and we saw some incredible things. They have the world's largest collection of corks. They have 4,000-year-old artifacts from wineries that you can never even name at this point. And there were all sorts of other things too, artwork and chalices and giant wine presses, more things than I can even remember. After the tour, we met back up with Rafa, and we had one of the most incredible meals I've ever had in my life. I think we were sitting at the table for like 3 hours, and they just kept bringing out course after course after course, and wine after wine after wine. After that dinner, we all went back to the hotel to freshen up a little bit, of course, and then we met up with Borja, their hospitality manager. He's a young, athletic dude who found his way into the wine industry kind of by chance. We met up with him, we went out, hit some bars, and had a little bit of tapas, and then we went and we did karaoke until like 5 in the morning. The contrast between the serious and historical nature of the Vivanco Family Wine Museum and the Carlos Serres Winery, and then the nightlife and fun that we had in Logroño was really, really cool to see. I think my favorite wine from the Carlos Serres Winery was the Carlos Serres Rioja Reserva. It's something that I still enjoy now when I'm back in the States. It wasn't just something that I liked while I was in Spain, and it really speaks to what Rioja is. This is a region with deep historical roots, really firm structure and rules that they abide by, but still, those rules are always evolving and changing to keep up with the times. A lot like the juxtaposition of the winery, the museum, and the city of Logroño, in my experience in all of them. To me, this bottle really encapsulates the experience that I had there and the culture surrounding the wine. Now, as much as I loved Alicante and Rioja, my favorite place that we went was easily Basque. The first place we went in Basque was Ignacio Urrezuela Winery up on Mount Ernio. Here, they have ancient varietals of grapes growing on incredibly steep slopes, and they're pergola trained so that moisture doesn't affect them and cause any rot issues or anything like that. These are ancient practices and ancient varietals that people are still making wines with today. Javier, the winemaker, was a lot of fun to be around, and he was a young, youthful guy that does music production in his spare time. He brought us up into the vineyards, followed by his dogs and his social media team, and we had a lot of fun kind of just BSing with him and talking about what was going on in his winery. After that, he brought us back down the mountain and into the winery itself, which was really, really cool. I guess the frame of the building was actually an old, like, 15th century cider press, which is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen, and I really wish I took more pictures of it because it was incredible. While we were in the winery, we tasted some wines, of course, some of them straight from the fermentation tanks, and we just all around had a good time and got to know Javier and his wines. The next day was really my favorite day of the trip. We met up with Javier in San Sebastian pretty early, and we went from restaurant to restaurant having pinchos and wine, and we spent the whole day kind of just walking around the city and experiencing it. At one point, he told us that there was a festival going on for some saint or something like that, and there was a giant parade coming down the street that we were on. Before we knew it, he dragged us into the middle of the parade, and we were dancing like the locals. The next place we went was his restaurant, which was right on the dock. We had an incredible meal here. We had some of the freshest fish that I've ever had, to the point where a guy literally came up off of a boat, brought an octopus and a bag of sardines into the restaurant, and within a half hour, we were eating them. Having grown up on Long Island, I'm a sucker for fresh fish, and it really does not get any fresher than that. While we were doing all this, Santi was teaching us a little bit more about Basque culture, including the right way to pour Txakolina. You see, the way they do it there isn't the way that you see Soms in the US pouring most wines. They take the bottle, they hold it high up, as high as they can get it, and pour it down to aerate it, and it really does change the way that you experience a Txakolina. The wine that stood out to me the most from Ignacio Urrezuela was Ernio, which is a petnatish Txakolina style, like bright, sparkly, funky bottle of wine. It went perfect with the environment that we were in and with the fish that was on the table. As the sun set, Javier had to go, and we stayed behind at the restaurant to enjoy our last night in Spain as a group. We sat on the docks watching the sunset over the ocean, which I had never really experienced before, being from the east coast of the US, and it was just a really nice night. And then, all of a sudden, I heard music. I turned around and I could see a show going on like 200 meters away, right across the water. And when I heard the music, I knew that I had to go experience it firsthand. So I said goodbye to the people that I was with for now, told them that I would meet up with them in a little bit, and I went over there. What I wound up being a part of was a free punk show, and the music was really good. I've been listening to the band since, but that's not even the point. The point was just how fun and energetic this city really is. It wasn't just the parade for a saint, it wasn't just the wines and the fish, it was the entire culture that was ingrained within these streets. The culture isn't just in the streets there, it's also in the wines. When I think about that wine, Ernio, I think about the energy and the verve and the fun and the refreshment that it was to be in such a great city with such great people and such great culture. This is a place that's full of young energy, it's bright, it's lively, and it's full of movement, just like that bottle of Ernio is. It was really easy to understand now why Txakolina is the wine that defines Basque. Spain really taught me that wine is just culture in a glass. Of course, terroir, the climate, the soil, all of that goes into it, but every single wine that I tasted really was a reflection of the people and the culture surrounding it. Triga perfectly encapsulates Alicante's power and generosity, while Carlos Serra's Reserva shows off the history and finesse of Rioja, and Ernio shows off that energetic passion that I felt when I was in Basque. So next time you open a bottle of wine, don't just think about the tasting notes. Think about the place that it's from and the people that help make that place what it is, and you'll experience it in a whole new way. If you want to check out the wines of Ignacio Urizola, Carlos Serra's, or Bodegas Volver, I got a link down in the description. I'll also link these 3 specific wines as well. If there's any regions or grapes that you want me to do next, let me know down in the comments, because I love exploring new topics as much as I love explaining them. So that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you all next week. Adios.